just to let the people out there know a little bit about yourself in case I've never heard of you, would you mind just giving us a bit of background to what it is you actually do?
I'd be delighted. Would I be able to, would you prefer that I looked into the names or would you prefer I looked at you?
I'd prefer you do whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, we'll probably fit between the two.
Yeah.
Well, what do I do? And that's the question, because
Yeah.
I do so much stuff. But essentially, what I'm doing is taking this ancient Chinese Taoist wisdom, which is like the template of everything I'm working with, and transforming it as best I can into something that people of today can relate to and understand and use, because it's very clever. It's a clever system. Tai Chi comes from it, acupuncture comes from it, Feng Shui comes from it. Those are sort of like quite famous things that come from Taoism. But the philosophy as well, the understanding of yin and yang and what goes up must come down and all of that. Taking that and making it available via every possible medium that I can, so whether it's the internet or doing live shows or music or writing books or doing this kind of thing that we're doing now, making podcasts, all of that stuff. And in a probably more colourful way than I don't know if it should be presented as colourfully as I do it, because I'm a man of the modern world, or at least think I am. And I think we've got to have fun learning stuff. My whole thing is it doesn't have to be separated. Just because it's about so-called spirituality, just because it's about consciousness and the movement of energy and learning how to manage your life effectively, I don't see why that means it's then got to be dull and boring and separated from the fun of life. Because I think I've had my greatest experiences when I've been having fun, not when I've been trying to have a great experience. And I've learned the most out in the world, I think, rather than sitting studying or in a sort of temple environment. And the idea that I've got, I don't know if it can work, I think sometimes it does, sometimes I don't know, is to turn the whole planet into the temple. So wherever you're going, it's within the spiritual context. And the other side of that is that the whole planet is a nightclub. So there's this combination of the temple and the nightclub within and around. And that's basically the crux of what I'm trying to do. Sometimes successfully, sometimes I make a terrible message. There's no question about it, because I'm a flawed human being, like we all are. I'm not pretending to be perfect or a saint or anything, because there's no way. I am totally human and completely honestly fucked up like everybody else. I have my deep schisms. We all do. I mean, my own healing process is all about bringing the two sides of me together. The male and the female, the higher and the lower, as is with all of us. But what I'm doing is I'm sharing the process as best as I can, hopefully not without losing too much dignity along the way. And the results of my experiment in healing myself, I'm sharing all the techniques I'm using for me, as well as all the ones I've used with other people. Because I can say that I'm a healer by training. I worked for 20 years healing people with Chinese medicine and psychotherapy and what have you. More or less effectively, highly effectively for the majority of people I've treated. And now basically what I want to do is just give the information clearly so that everyone can use it to heal themselves. That's kind of it, really.
That's a great answer, brilliant. I was just wondering how you came up with the name of the Barefoot Doctor. Obviously, what a Barefoot Doctor is.
And my feet out, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah, there we go. There's the bare feet.
Barefoot Doctor is a Chinese metaphor for a humble healer. It just means somebody who walks about barefoot, as in not in fancy footwear.
Do you ever wear footwear? Do you ever wear footwear?
Yeah,
because I've never seen you in it.
No, because you probably only ever see me indoors. But if I'm out...
Right. Okay. So you're taking it to the ultimate expression.
No, it's a metaphor. It's only that. It's not meant to be literal. It just happens I've always walked around barefoot whenever possible for just like the feeling of it. And to be honest, it's partly vanity, because I always find I always think I look silly just wearing socks with no shoes. Right. So if I'm indoors, I can't always put my socks off when I was very young. Because I felt funny wearing socks.
So it's something you started when you were younger, just naturally.
Yeah, but the thing is that, no really, I'll tell you why I picked the name of the bear. So Barefoot Doctors were these characters who go around the countryside in China, healing people as they went. They were mostly women, therefore very nurturing people. They didn't get paid a lot of money for it. They got looked after wherever they went. And their job was to raise people's spirits. They played the flute, they played the lute, they'd sing them songs, they'd recite poetry, tell them stories, draw magical figures on their their houses to invite good luck and health and wealth and all the rest of it. And they'd use acupuncture and herbs and acupressure and teach them a bit of Tai Chi and meditation. So their job was to kind of keep everyone in the countryside in good spirits. I think that's a bit of a facile way of describing it, but that's the gist of it. And because I'm trained as a doctor of Chinese medicine originally, a psychotherapist, a martial arts teacher, and a teacher of meditation, all that stuff, I felt that
And you write poetry and stuff and do music?
Yeah, exactly, thank you. I don't make music and I write poetry. I felt that, and I'm a showman of sorts, I felt that it was okay to say I was a barefoot doctor, but I have to tell you, it wasn't really like that. What it was really all about is that I needed a name for my band. If barefoot doctor seemed like the right name. Then the band fell apart, and I was still going around making music called Barefoot Doctor, and then, because of the music, I got a column on a magazine that was about culture and music and stuff, which I wrote under the name of Barefoot Doctor because it looked nice on the page rather than my name, Stephen Ruswich, just the name, you know. And it was really popular, so suddenly Barefoot Doctor was a writer. And I think Barefoot Doctor was everything that was about me. It all kind of happened by accident because I was, I don't know, do you remember Dr. John?
Green.
Yeah, he was a kind of a big hero of mine. It was that kind of vibe when I was thought Barefoot Doctor for a band name, you know.
Alright, cool.
And it's kind of come full circle because the band is now called Barefoot Doctor.
There's a band called that now as well?
Yeah, we're doing a show on the 1st at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, and that is the band. That's like about a 5th gig now. And it is sort of slightly, it's not really a gig, it is a shamanistic healing journey, guided by spoken word and audience participation show, but all live play, proper beats and what have you.
Well, obviously your last one, and I found it, I thought it was really, really good, and some of the stuff, you felt the vibrations going through your body, and you knew there was something happening on a level that most bands wouldn't really touch.
Yeah.
Most rock bands, obviously you've got a deep arcane knowledge that's gone into that music.
Well, a lot of experimenting with, I mean, I did train quite, I don't know how extensively, but for me it was quite extensively, in the sort of the yoga of sound. Both Taoist and Indian. You know, they talk in Indian yoga about a thing called Shabd, S-H-A-B-D, which means the sacred sound. And they replicate it by chanting Om, like, and if you get, say, 20 or 30 people doing that in a room together, it's, I don't know if you've ever heard it, it's a beautiful sound.
We had the whole audience doing it that night.
Well, that's because I couldn't hear it from the stage. Which is a shame because I love that noise. And what they're replicating is something that physicists have since discovered recently, is a 30,000 light year across cosmic background radiation wave, light wave. What are those things called? Light waves? A light wave, 30,000 light years across, no? A sound, a sound obviously, sorry. A sound wave, 30,000 light years across. It's massive and it's 50 octaves below human hearing levels. Well, I heard that when I was 6 years old. I mean, I didn't know that's what it was, but I was 6 years old, I was lying on my bed. Is this going on too long for you?
Not at all, not at all.
Lying on my bed one afternoon, looking up at the sky in North London where I grew up. And out of nowhere, I heard this sound of the Om, 50 octaves deeper, as if it was being chanted by about 8 million monks. It was
this just came totally out of the blue, you're lying in your bed.
Yeah, and it wasn't like weird, it was just I heard it right inside me, deep as anything. I knew I wasn't imagining it, I knew it wasn't an hallucination, but I also knew, like, my mother downstairs couldn't hear it herself. I knew what it was. In my terminology at the time, it was like the engine of the universe talking to me and saying, no, that's true, we are all connected to this deeper thing.
And at 6 years old, you recognised that just because it was talking to you on that level kind of thing?
It was how it was being, I was interpreting. Yes, it was quite a clear message, which, I mean, obviously with hindsight, I'm kind of maybe embellishing my understanding of it as 6 years old, but I remember knowing it and knowing that my job in the world, my place in the world, would be to remind everyone else that we all have this direct connection to that power. That was my job, which is very different from religion, because religion is like, we don't have that unless we do it through this one person or this one organisation. So this was quite revolutionary, and I knew that even at that age.
So you were 6 years old when you had this. Then how did you actually get started in healing itself?
So I went out in the street the next day. I'm kidding. I got started actually by a weird fluke. I was really into having scraps at school.
All right.
Not because I was vindictive or vicious. I just really love fighting. I still do. I love it. Martial arts, And I got into trouble for it a lot. I'm 11 years old by now. I guess it was early onset of puberty, so I was all weirded out. I got into trouble. My dad happened to know a friend of his was going to this Japanese Aikido master who just arrived in London to learn Aikido.
Just very briefly, what's Aikido?
Oh, Aikido is the sort of Japanese version of Tai Chi in a way. You're using the opponent's force you bring it into you, you yield to it, and you use that to deflect them.
Okay.
So you use their force to attack them back with it.
All right, okay, I think.
And it's essentially non-violent because it stresses on you don't try to hurt the other, you try and neutralise whatever they're doing.
Okay.
And although it's a martial art and it works in terms of the physical, its main value is in giving you an innate, intrinsic understanding of how to play with the energy because in everyday life it's like a bit of a fight with people. And how you kind of work with that, how you dance with it really, so that everyone can benefit and people don't get upset. Not that let's just say, I'm no expert at that, because you can't please all the people all the time.
But you can learn techniques to do it better.
Maybe, yeah.
To stop fighting at school anyway. It just helped you to stop fighting so much at school.
It did, absolutely, completely. I stopped fighting because I suddenly respected what true martial art was all about. There was no point trying to, getting into a situation that might be damaging to anybody if you could help it. Anyway, he was a healer. That's really what he was doing. That was his job. I didn't really get that at the time, but so in hindsight, realising why he had a practice in Harley Street was because he was a doctor.
Right.
I never sussed that when I was a kid. And at the end of every lesson of martial art, Aikido, he'd teach how to channel what the Japanese call ki, the Chinese call chi, from the palms into somebody to act as a catalyst to trigger their own healing energy, and from that would come alleviation of pain symptoms and hopefully
hands-on healing, that's generally called.
Yeah, a bit like that, hands-on healing. And I was good at it because I was 11. When you're 11, I was the only kid in the whole group there. The rest of them were adults. When you're 11, the rational mind hasn't developed that much that it gets in the way of all this stuff.
Yeah,
so you sort of
just do it.
And I was really blessed in that way. So managed to for both the martial art and meditation and the healing to kind of slide in under the radar at that age. And it became a party trick. I did it when I was a teenager. I'd take people's headaches, their stress, their belly aches away. These little dramas that would erupt at teenage parties with a really pretty girl running off the stage in a flat, followed by her ladies in waiting. I would be invited into the inner sanctum to sort of to heal her, chill her out. It was a really nice place to be as a teenager, to actually have a role in society at such a young age.
Especially when involving girls.
Of course. And then, but I was a hippie through my teens, and that was all big with mysticism and the ways of the East. So I got introduced to yoga, got into yoga in quite a big way. Through my yoga teacher, I met Artie Lang.
I was going to ask you about that, the Glasgow psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He was your mentor for 3 years.
Yeah.
That was a very fortunate position to find yourself in then. What did you learn from him?
Well, number one, he was a psychiatrist, he was a psychotherapist. What he was the most compassionate healer that I've ever encountered in my life. I mean, there were times where he'd walk, I remember there was I was privileged to be in a group of about 10 to 20, I can't remember, young people. I was 20, the rest of them were 30, but they were like yoga teachers, all trained to be therapists in a quite maverick style. They were his inner sanctum, and I was one of them.
Right, okay. And
so it was a get-together one night, and he was pacing up and down this quite long room, talking about Jacqueline Dupre, the cellist who had very bad multiple sclerosis and she died. He was treating her, and he was a bit drunk. In those days, he used to drink quite a lot, which is why he got a reputation. That's why I think he got a bad reputation. But nonetheless, that didn't bother me.
Yeah.
He was walking up and down, and he's talking about her pain, and everyone's eyes were transfixed on him because he was really hypnotic, had a beautiful Glaswegian accent and lovely hand manners, and was a beautiful man. You couldn't help being in love with him. Everybody was in love with him. And he was crying unabashedly crying about her pain. and the tears and the snot were rolling down onto his cardigan, but he didn't even try to wipe them away. He was just purely feeling the pain, and everyone was feeling it with him. And it was those kind of moments that I learned from him, how to not be ashamed of the deepest human emotions. The other thing that was hugely important, and also to not be afraid to heal with compassion. Don't be distant from it. Unfortunately today, as I'm learning myself, that the boundaries seem to have to be very, very clearly defined when people get very confused. In those days, there was a lot of that informality, and the way it worked out was, this is the other thing I learned, is working with people who were seriously mentally ill. On the level, so that therapist and patient, there was no differentiation between them. He said, who can say who's mad in a mad world like this?
I think I've heard that quote, yeah.
Yeah, and so the therapist, as such, was encouraged and required to really look at their own madness, their own schisms. Hence why I start off, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a fucked up, flawed individual, because how else could you be on this planet?
Human,
unless you spend the whole time meditating, but even then. I noticed that the back, a track of playing in the background quite, but it might be your...
No, I quite like that, it's good.
And so I learned that, to have the humility to understand that you can't say who's mad and who isn't. And so that enabled you to care on the level for people, rather than come from this place of I am a great doctor who has it all sorted, and you are a fuck up. And you come to me, therefore I am in a position of power, you're not. I've never come from that place.
But you're open to learn from them as well, possibly?
Oh, totally. I mean, everybody is like the guru. I mean, it can often come in greatly distorted ways, but nonetheless, everybody has a message. And so that's always been that sense of being a brother rather than a father figure. And a student that's passing on information as opposed to an expert, hopefully.
So that was obviously a very important development for you, and then you decided in 1979 to go off to New Mexico, and where you lived for 4 years with Native Americans, studying shamanism and was it Oriental medicine within it? Could you tell us a little bit about shamanism and just your experience there as well in Mexico?
I mean, I was hanging out with a guy called Sonny Spruce, who's a really good brother for me, a really close friend, and he was a shaman, a medicine man.
Does he use the psychedelic drugs to do that, or was it through drumming and stuff like that?
It was a combination of many things, vision quests, depriving yourself of food and water for a period of time, depriving yourself of company for going off in the mountains on your own.
And this would have to be passed down for you to become a shaman. It was a lineage to that, no?
No, up that, because what I was going to say was that not being a Native American myself, I couldn't be invited into the whole. There was something at the core of it all, but I wasn't allowed to.
So that's what I'm saying, the people you learned from, they did have that tradition getting passed down.
Absolutely, yes.
And you were getting into that knowledge as best as you could, obviously, from an outsider. Which must, again, is an amazing opportunity.
It was an incredible honour, truly an incredible honour. And it was totally informal, and not much speaking. It wasn't on a conceptual level. It was very much, you tell me stories, that's what we had.
All right.
So that's the style.
Yeah.
And he told me these incredible stories about a bolt of lightning that would come in through the window, hit the mirror, bounce off a piece of glass, and then melt a ring that the jeweller had made for somebody that he shouldn't have made it for, or whatever. And he goes, do you believe that? And I go, far-fetched, but yeah. And he wouldn't say, well, good or bad, we move on to the next thing. And there was the use of rhythm was a very big part of it, and that's where I was able to come in, because I drum. And I can really hold a rhythm since I was a tiny kid. My dad was a jazz drummer, it's in my blood. And so I was welcomed into that part, which was for me the most exciting, the drumming at the dances, which was a great honour. And I seemed to have a capacity when they did it together, going really nuts, which was great. And so I got a lot out of it. It was repetitive rhythms. This was before trance music came about. But it was definitely that was what was at the roots of it, repetitive rhythm. And that kind of and when the talking would come, he would talk to you in a kind of a rhythm. I'm doing it much faster than he would do, but he would talk to you in a rhythm, and your mind would fall into a pattern which would make you feel good, just like rap today. And that's kind of what I have taken and worked with, because it creates a different state of mind.
I was going to say that. Does that put you in an altered state when you're doing all that drumming and stuff like that?
Very much so.
And have you taken, I know in your journal recently you wrote about you took ketamine under certain circumstances, medical supervision, and I know other shamans in South America have taken ayahuasca. Have you taken those kind of drugs? Do you think it compares at all to the state you were in through drumming? Or can you reach places through the drugs that you can't through the drumming? Or are they just different?
Ooh, they're just different. I think they take you to the same place. The drumming definitely takes you into the world of the spirit, there's no question. Well, that's my experience of it, because when you're doing it, it's not a conscious action. You know, the rhythms are highly complex. If you were thinking about them, you could never do it. I mean, it's coming through you. And what happens when you drum on your own, or a group drums, is something is evoked. There's a sort of a space evoked that wasn't there before. I mean, we know that from beat. You know, when we're hearing beat, it changes the space.
Yeah, that's why people like music.
That's why people like music. And it definitely takes you into a space, but I don't think you could compare it to a drug experience any more than you could compare, say, eating a strawberry to having a kiss with someone. I mean, they both would give you a delight in the moment, but they're a different sort of delight. In the old days, it was quite prevalent in certain circles of therapists in California, Berlin, London, to be experimenting with various hallucinogenics, and I was involved in some of that. And ketamine was the most, was incredibly powerful. I would not recommend it to anybody, even though I know it's really widespread use of it. It's being used all over the place in club band these days. I wouldn't, because I think that if, without the right guidance, it does lead to a fascination with the death state, because it seems to be where you go when you take it. You go to that state of what I call eternal life, which is actually going on all the time without us being aware of it, because we're so busy with this local life. And I think that I've seen it happen, that people who get into it in a big way, and it is quite, I think it's not necessarily addictive, but certainly habit forming, do get drawn to the death state, and quite often do actually die.
Right. Is it quite dangerous if you took too much of it, for instance?
Yeah, I think it is really. It's a very, very strong.
Can you die from an overdose from it?
I would imagine so, yeah. I mean, it's a strong anaesthetic, and if the heart isn't in a good place, you can, easily, or the kidneys could pack up. You just don't know. I mean, you're definitely risking, there's no question. You're taking a huge risk, I think. And that isn't moralistic, it can't be, it would be hypocritical. When we used to do it in those days, you'd have at least one person sitting with you who was an experienced therapist. There'd be a nurse there. I mean, it all sounds very square. I mean, these are pretty cool people, but it does sound
square. So they took it seriously because they respected what they were doing.
And you would lie down, and it would, excuse me, they'd inject it into your bum. And it was all watched and monitored, and you know, any kind of change of heart rate and all that kind of stuff was monitored, and they saw your breathing was coming rough, that someone would come over and say, come on out, breathe. It was taken very seriously, so you know, I'm not one to judge, people do whatever they want to do, but it is a risk, I mean, like all drugs are. I think overall, these things are meant to happen. It's meant to spread through society. It's a medicine. My MDMA was a medicine that opened people's hearts. The important thing is to take the lesson from the medicine and then do it naturally, because you can't keep doing it with chemicals. It doesn't work on stuff.
I suppose other people have this idea as well. Like the 60s, when LSD became widespread throughout the world, and obviously there was an explosion in fashion and art and music. I've got a theory that possibly we don't need to take those drugs now, because those people in that era, by doing it, opened up doors for humanity to be able to reach without taking the drugs. Because we're inspired now, we can hear all the different kinds of music. So you can take it once or twice, but that job was done in the 60s. Do you think there's like human evolution is now evolving to a state? Do you think there's something special happening in this particular era we're living through, heading towards what some people are talking about 2012? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, but do you know what I'm getting at? Just like, can we go into this, maybe what you were talking about at the start, with regard to the temples everywhere, and human consciousness as we're going to evolve to another level of consciousness? Have you got any thoughts on that kind of thing?
Like I say, if we don't, but at least we'll have a good time getting there. Hey, what did you say there? Yes, I do believe that the job was done in that sense, and that any taking of hallucinogenics now is more on the side of indulgence than it is on the side of necessity. I think, the collective consciousness was affected in a profound way and transformed because of all that. And now it has been transformed. But however, it is still transforming exponentially. And that, because so many people are waking up to let's say, the mechanics of meditation, the basis of being in touch with your higher intelligence, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, and the innate understanding that as you do so, you're connecting at that level to that level in all other beings. And that has a sort of an amazing, powerful, exponential chain reaction.
Yeah.
Where it's leading to, who knows? So 2012, it would surprise me if it wasn't a hugely significant moment. Is it December 21st? I think there's a shop to say that. December 21st, 2012. It would surprise me greatly if it wasn't a significant moment. However, it wouldn't surprise me if nothing actually happened visible. Because I remember the harmonic convergence in 1987. This was also one of those big ones that was going to change everything, and it did. This was seemed to me the kind of the rocket boost that triggered the whole shift of consciousness. It started from, I went on the heath that night with a couple of friends, and we sat all night watching the sky. The sun was a bit orange, but that was just London at one point. No, that's it. We went out to the street lights. And nothing happened, but
on the visible level.
On a visible level. For sure, looking back, that was definitely a major turning point. I think 2012, something major, it will reach some kind of critical mass in terms of consciousness. So hence the idea that time as we know it will come to an end. Because maybe we'll have entered collectively into that enlightened state, the sort of so-called eternal life state, the spirit state, wherein linear time is seen as what it is. It's a construct that we've all joined into. And so at that level, maybe, yes, we'll enter the kind of a different consciousness realm, and through that be able to communicate and cooperate with each other in a more effective way, so we don't wipe each other out. That's my wish. I don't really foresee it being the end of the world. Occasionally I do. Things will happen sometimes. I think, oh, wow, I can see it's only 12, man. I've really got a couple of years left. Sorry, But I don't, in my instincts, feel that. I couldn't go on if I did, I think. I'd be too gloomy. I see us evolving, and I think we're going to evolve into... And there'll always be death, there'll always be pain, that's part of it all, but...
What about poverty and hunger? Do you not think that humans should collectively get together now and make them eradicated from the planet? There's a guy, you probably heard of him, Buckminster Fuller, who said that since 1971 that no human being on the planet needs to starve or be without shelter. Because we've got, and he actually designed a lot of architecture buildings that recycle water and stuff like that. And surely, as a species, I got the feeling if we looked at that and dealt with that, then these other things could come because we've dealt with it on a physical level.
Well, I take your point. Yeah, I mean, Buckminster Fuller was a big hero of mine. And I'm well with all that. And of course, it's crucial. However, from where I see things working,
it's going to happen.
I do believe it's going to happen gradually, one way or the other, whether by hook or by crook, or force or will, or the will for it to happen, or combination, probably a combination. It will happen, but it seems that it can only happen through communication, coming from a wise, enlightened state, and that you can't force. Hence why my focus is always on the communication side.
Yeah, because I used to be in the conspiracy theories, and I used to think you had to fight the powers that be to change, but I've kind of realised you work on yourself, and through working on yourself, that improves your surroundings, and that will just basically do what you're saying there, lead to other things. I want to briefly just ask you had a vision, and I think it was just the tail end of your period of studying with the Native Americans that kind of give you your life mission.
Yeah.
Could you tell a wee bit about a vision? Is it something you've seen, or was it in your head, and this kind of made you see this pop culture thing you talked about at the start? You wanted to bring this wisdom to the planet like that.
Well, with me, what tends to happen is that I get a kind of quite deep inner voice talks to me from time to time, and will spontaneously give me like a message appertaining to how to proceed in my life, in my work, really. And I follow those, and things happen. As we do, I guess. Sometimes those incidences are so powerful, and the accompanying visual display that goes on in here is so strong that it stays with me. And this was one of those moments. And it was on a mountainside. I was up there with a friend of mine called Cindy Ree, who was an amazing person from Texas who would the time. And there was something about that actually used to fascinate me.
Oh, I thought I was going to stir off. Did it trigger you?
Huh?
I was going to say, did it stir off, trigger you?
Yeah. For some bizarre reason, it used to make me really, really. It was one of those noises that, and anyone else would be like, oh, that's disgusting. But she was such a lovely person. But when she did it, it was so crap. It used to trip me into all sorts of. And we got up onto this mountainside because I was about to leave, and we'd become good friends. I taught her Tai Chi. She's a lesbian, and she was I was one of the honorary sisters of the sorority where I used to live there. And so I used to feel very comfortable with her because I love women, and especially if it's like being with a guy. There's just total freedom in that. So we were hanging out, and I was going to say goodbye to her. We were saying goodbye. That was our goodbye ritual going up in the mountains.
Okay.
And we had a lot of conversation about what I was going to be doing, and my head went into a scramble. So I've got to stop talking about it. Sat down on this rock, looking out over the New Mexican plains, high up, man, and the view, you can see, you almost like see the curve of the planet from up there, very thin air and beautiful blue sky. And it was just like, it just came to me like, spread out there in front of me. The vision of what, like the travelling medicine show looks like now, except multiplied to a bit of an extravaganza with huge colour and light. And it was the thing that it was, the rock and roll religion is over. What happens now with music is just parody, to some extent. So, but the music is part of this. So that was it. I could see the music, and it was telling me the music is a very important part of this, but it's not the point of it. That was the interesting thing. The music in this is here to serve, supporting the message. And the message is all the Taoist stuff you've learned, all the stuff you've learned from Ronnie Lang, all the stuff you've learned from Sonny Spriggs, all the stuff of comparative religion that you studied, all of that, all the martial arts, have to be brought into and made into a form of entertainment. And it's going to be colourful, warm, exciting, generous, beautiful, and it's going to be that people will come to this event and they'll leave there feeling like 10 feet tall and ready for anything, and it will create transformation. This is there to spur on and speed up the transformation process that's going on, evolutionary process. And it ended with, okay, you can't hide out in the mountains forever, it's time to go back down to, it seemed like go back down to, because you were so high up, go back down to the madness there and have the biggest dance you can possibly have because you have nothing to lose. Go there. And that was it. Go on, big boy.
Go see the world.
And that was the sensation. But I'd please say that, watching this, it's in all humility. That wasn't like a grandiose vision of messianic proportions or anything.
Well, that was back in 1983, around 2006, and then you... No, not at all. I mean, the Travel and Wedding Show is obviously happening, and another thing that's came out of that is your website, which I believe is a big focus of your life right now.
Yes, you can say that.
Yeah, you put a lot of money into that and risked yourself financially a few years ago.
Yeah.
Are you pleased with how that's going and developing, and what's that do?
Financially, no, it's a complete fuck up, man. It's totally running at a loss. I mean, I was quite gratified to see that when they sold YouTube to Google, they did it for whatever the news it was, and they didn't. They still weren't making a profit, even though they were getting 100 million people looking at films every day or something. Putting films. I mean, it was like, well, they it's not that stupid. It's really hard. When I built the site, there were no templates because it was totally just dreamt up out of my head how to do it, and so it was a really expensive operation. So it's not making profit yet, but. And that's just one angle. I mean, luckily I can just about keep it all moving along. But I'm happy with the experiment in some ways. Yeah, it's been really exciting, quite amazing to see what you can do. It's a little bit scary at times. It does blow up and get a bit out of control. But I mean, I accept that is as a result of my own sort of twists and turns and imbalances that somehow get reflected in the outside world. You know, I get hit, what's the word, deified, even though I say please don't, and then knocked down off the pedestal. Which is, okay, fair game. I suppose that's what happens if you stand up to be counted. But overall, I think it's pretty amazing, and I'm well willing to keep going with it. I mean, it's amazing to have that facility of reaching out around the world with the press of the button like that.
There's lots of different aspects within the website. For instance, you do a daily journal, which I really enjoy reading, and it's good to have somebody of your kind of knowledge talk about your thoughts on a daily basis. Do you get a lot from writing that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I do because it's a relationship with a countless number of people. It's a relationship.
This was your main idea for setting up the website. It was so you could make yourself available for as many people as possible. And because, for instance, you do one-to-one healings or you do guided meditations in there and stuff like that. So just writing a journal was you relating to people and letting them know how you're progressing in your life. And I tend to find that when I'm reading about you, it somehow relates to what's going on in my life. And that could be the collective unconscious again or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's the point of it. I'm always afraid I'm getting too self-indulgent. That's always my thing I'm watching. And I think I do err on that side a bit. But it's kind of like, here is this bumbling fool who's a pretty good guy, all in all, doing the best he can to use, like, experimenting with all this Taoist stuff. He fucks up every now and again, but generally, more or less, keeps it okay, and it's very interesting and exciting what this stuff can do for you. So kind of like showing how it works from me, I think, it does. It encourages people to experiment with it themselves. I'm not sure, I don't know if that's useful or not, do I? I mean, I do, I enjoy writing it. Sometimes it's a bit scary. Imagine writing every day like that.
Especially, it's already doing a blog when you've got a blog that you know that like at least 1 million people that month are going to look at.
Yes.
The different story.
And as I say, it's an experiment. I never know how it's going to go. But overall, it's fun.
You do something else within that in podcasts. So it's like, what I like about them, I've done like Paul McKenna hypnotism and NLP. Have you got anything briefly to say about NLP? Have you looked at that at all? Some people criticise NLP for being a method of controlling situations by very carefully picking your words and training yourself. Do you not think that humans that's a good way to be, we should be learning to improve our communication through choosing our words carefully? Or what do you think about NLP really with regard to that, if you know what I'm getting at?
Well, I say both what you said. It depends who's using it. Or at what time of their life or in what circumstances they're using it, what the motivation is. But I was taught NLP by a bit of a master called Jürgen Kolt, the Berlin guy, many years ago. And just because I wanted to understand what it was, I trained with running and hypnotherapy to some extent. I've done shamanism, and I wanted to see how NLP was.
What it's all about.
Yeah. And then great respect for it. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, they're brilliant guys, Bangor and Grinder?
Michael Breen, John Grindler,
Grindler, sorry. They were ingenious. They were magicians before they did NLP. And their whole thing was all about illusion. And they were really, really, really ingenious guys, and I think they've made a really huge contribution. However, I have come across people that use NLP that freak me out because they seem to be detached from their feelings, their compassion, their caring for the other. But that's just them. That's
I see what you're getting at though. They're all wrapped up in the technique rather than the actual physical presence.
And perhaps those people were at that phase at the time and will gradually integrate it more and become more sort of humane with it. So yes, I think with any of these techniques there is definitely a danger that you could misuse it to some extent. But I don't think that's going to benefit you in any kind of great way by doing so. Just make people think it's a bit weird or whatever. I don't like to do, I'm trying to be totally conscious of not manipulating other people. I like to give people their space to be themselves and just to be as honest about where I'm at as possible. I don't, although I'm accused occasionally of that, I've been, leveled at me that I use hypnotic powers to gain power over people. It's total utter bollocks, but I know, because I'm genuinely concerned not to be doing that. But I think you can, because it's...
Well, every situation you're hypnotising somebody, you could say, because we're all interacting and behaving in certain ways to affect that situation.
You hypnotise me into thinking of this as an interview. You're sitting there with a camera. That's the hypnotic effect of people that have said this is all about capturing reality. And we're hypnotising each other, of course. And my hand movements like this is all just, that's where it's unconscious. I have to sit on my hands. But it's not consciously, right, I'll do that to draw the person into me. It's not, I don't want to do that. Because what I've found is if you do start to draw people to you, you get sucked into stuff you don't want to be in somehow. It works in that kind of way. I'm again not talking moralistically, it's just from experience learning that. So can you explain a little bit more about Taoism then, and how that doesn't do those kind of things? Well, Taoism really is just a name for a collection of techniques and methods for being able to tune into that deeper aspects of self and to come from that level in all your doings, by thereby manifesting a reality that works very smoothly for you without too many jagged, horrible bits. And if there are, you know how to work your way around without it hurting you too much. It's all about flowing with the energy that's going through being able to discern the energy in an event, the flow of energy in an event within yourself, within the other person, and to be able to kind of flow harmoniously with that rather than fight against it. Done by focusing on your internal state, how relaxed you are in your body, how your spine is lengthened, how you've got a roundness to your shape, and that gives roundness to your mind, and your breath flow stays that way, your thoughts flow nice and slow, and that kind of thing. It's generally, the information is carried in a variety of forms. So Tai Chi is a form, for example. Internal meditation, where you revolve energy in loops around your body, is another form. Qigong, where you sit and kind of play with the qi, the energy, like in repeated movements, is another form. And then you can use it for healing people, for self-defense, for energizing yourself, and getting your mind to be strong and all the rest of it. It does sort of address all aspects of self and others, but in a very simplistic, simple way. That's its beauty. It's very simple. The Tao is nothing. The Tao you can't put into words. It's the ineffable. It's the great current of reality. It's something beyond our ability to conceptualize. But it expresses itself as a sort of an interplay between these two complementary and opposing forces, yin, which is decrease, and yang, which is increase, and they're constantly moving with each other. The effect of that generates what they call the five elemental forces: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, representing all different aspects of material reality. And the combination of those five is what gives rise to what they call the world of 10,000 things, the world of the world. This is an illusory effect of the internal cause, the internal generative force. This is like the Tao's clothes, what we're seeing here. And we again are, our physical presence is like an external effect of the Tao. We're its clothes. We're shapes of the Tao. We're the Tao expressing itself as human beings. And if you're in deep enough inside yourself, and I'm in deep enough inside myself, it's the Tao talking to itself going on here. And it's when we get those moments of the Tao talking to itself that everybody in the present goes, yes. That's when we know we're all connected in that sense.
Well, I've got 2 points. We talked about NLP and kind of trying to get what you want. And sometimes you talk about manifesting your own reality to get what you want by flowing with the Tao.
Yeah.
Is the Tao like something that's pre-written and we're trying to get on that path to achieve the best ends that the Tao knows? So you're like jumping on the Tao path to get where the Tao wants you to go? Or is it possible to go against the Tao? Or do you believe that everything's written in the stars and that's part of the Tao?
Yeah, who knows? But all I know is that if you relax your body, you breathe slowly, you have an intention in your mind, and you visualise that intention, and you tell yourself that's what I intend to manifest, and say it's you being in a state of perfect happiness, perfect success, perfect health, perfect joy, perfect bliss, perfect abundance. And whatever the conditions that were required to produce that effect for you the Tao will take care of that. That's beyond your control. So you don't focus on the details of how it's going to happen.
Right, okay.
You visualise, you have the intention for yourself to be in this state of perfect happiness, whatever is required for that to happen. And you then let go, and you do what you have to do in your daily rounds, and try and be as kind to other people as possible. Try and stay positive and cheerful, and keep relaxing your body, and you hold that intention in your mind, you keep relaxing, you'll get urges, you must phone this one, phone them up. Go down that street, go down that street. By phoning that one up, it turns to an opportunity. By walking down that street, you bump into somebody, you'll see a sign or a book or something that gives you an idea. And bit by bit, you're led along this trail. Yeah. And eventually, without even realising, you'll suddenly find yourself in this vision that you had, being perfectly happy. And think, I've manifested all the conditions for my perfect... wow, that happened easily. That's the kind of way it works. Not without struggle, because we can't avoid struggle. Whether it's all predestined or not, he knows now. Nobody knows that.
Yeah.
You never work that one out.
I had to ask you though. You mentioned again there are 5 elements, and one thing I've heard you talk about that I've never heard any other healer person talk about, this was in your travel medicine show, you're talking about the liver and the kidneys and how, and the lungs, how they represent those 5 different ones, and also by heating them or cooling them down, it affects different parts of your emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have heard of the chakra system, but maybe not so much that. Can you just give a little inclination as to what that's about, please?
Yeah, when your liver is overheated, for example, you will get angry, livid. When your liver is underheated, when it's low in energy, you get depressed. When the heart is overheated, you get excitable. When the heart is under energized, you get despondent, dispirited. When the spleen is strong and working well, your mind is clear, your short-term memory is good, your sense of self is strongly formed. When the spleen is weak, you forget what you were talking about. You don't have a good grasp of material reality and how to operate properly, and your sense of self is a bit amorphous, so you haven't got a strong identity. When the lungs are too strong, too hot, you're just constantly projecting into the future. And that will produce anxiety, as you probably know. When the lungs are under-energized, you tend to dwell in the past and get caught in nostalgia and grief. When the kidneys are weak, you feel fearful no matter what. And when the kidneys are overstrong, you feel like you're just running on will. So whatever you will do. So there's not sort of that much balance to your actions because you're just running on your own will and what have you. So it's all about keeping the 5 organs in a state of balance and thereby keeping the mind and the sort of relationship with the various aspects of the mind in a relative balance too.
So that was very interesting. You wrote a book called The Handbook for the Urban Warrior. Does it go into those particular aspects? And
Handbook of the Urban Warrior doesn't so much. What does, as I recall, because I've written 10, so I can remember what I was showing. Liberation is a book about altering your state of mind, balancing up no matter what's going on, and that goes into this whole system.
And it's got techniques for if one's hot, taking it cold and stuff like that.
Yeah, many techniques. And also Return of the Urban Warrior, that dealt with the healing sounds, the sounds that affect the 5 organs.
If there was one brief, simple technique you could give people that's going to help them, a simple technique that would help people out there, could you just briefly describe one?
Yeah, I do. Can I do a complex one?
Yeah.
A compound one. Compound technique.
Okay, yeah.
But there's a little routine. I'm making this up as I go along. Not the techniques, but the order that they're coming in. It's just as it comes to me. Everybody gets like a lot of emotion, anger and stuff they can't express. Very important to get that to move. The Taoist gel is really good. You go like this, you go, and that releases it all. You start with that. Then do this. You pound on your chest and go, you keep doing it for a little while. You can go all over the place with it, all over the ribs. It's very good for your circulation and respiratory system, but keep going, and then stop suddenly. And about now, you notice this amazing tingling sensation erupt through your chest. Well, that's the equivalent of taking a nice stiff glass of scotch. If you like that sensation, do this, because it's the healthy way of doing that. In other words, it gives you courage, it makes you feel relaxed, it makes you feel loose, it makes you feel happy. And finally, because I'm just going to do it in 3 parts, is grab your ribs and gently prise them apart. It's nothing dangerous in this. You won't rip your ribs apart unless you're incredibly strong and stupid combined, which I'm assuming you're not stupid at least. You keep pulling, take a deep breath in, and eventually breathe out with a sigh. And that will completely relax you, get the heat into your kidneys as you drop your chi, your energy into your belly. Keep your chi in your belly as much as possible. Move from here wherever you're going. And any time you feel like you're going a bit disconnected from yourself, just put your finger there in the centre of your forehead and hold it there for a bit. What that will do is unify your mind, body and spirit. It will just get you into a unified shape. And then you're ready to go. I would tell you more, but we haven't got all day.
Yeah, that was very good. If the people do want to learn more, you do have something called the School for Warriors, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's like a training day. Is it October the 31st or something like that?
Yeah, but it's sold out, I'm afraid. 29th of October.
But this is something you do. This will be the 6th one.
Yeah.
And then they can go to your website, barefootdoctorworld.com, and then they'll be able to find out for the next one.
Yeah, if there is a next one, I never know with anything I'm doing, whether it's going to do, but there's going to be a next one.
Okay. You've also written a book that I'm happy through just now, if you've got another 10 minutes or so.
I've got about 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. Let me see. Well, basically, I just want to know if there's anything else you would like to plug then. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I really would just like to make people, I'd like to make you aware of the Travelling Medicine Show. Look out for that, because when it does come to town, wherever you are, that's the thing where my deepest passion lies, because I put in everything I've got into that. That's my everything I know, it all comes together in that, and I believe that is the art form. So just check out that, really.
You've made one album called Home Baby.
Yeah.
And you're in the process of making a second album.
Yeah, this is with this band. It's probably going to be called Humble Revolution. We don't know yet. Really.
There's 3 tracks available on the internet just now.
Nice one. Thanks for reminding me of that. 3 tracks available. tunetribe.com/barefoot.ca. Go there. Or go to MySpace/barefoot.travelling medicine show. But otherwise, no, I don't really want to plug. I'm sure eventually people will get to hear about what's going to be got to hear, meant to be heard about. I will just send you my love and wish you some kind of like magical occurrence in your life that just suddenly opens it all up to a new level for you. And that makes you very happy. Thank you.
Barefoot Doctor, thank you very much for being an excellent interview.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.